Good afternoon. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Building and Finance Subcommittee. Today is Tuesday, January 17th, 2023, and the time is 5:04 p.m. This subcommittee is meeting in person here at the Gloucester High School, located at 32 Leslie O. Johnson Road in Gloucester, Mass. Consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. Additionally, all votes taken by the Gloucester School Committee's Building and Finance Subcommittee during this and future meetings will be by roll call vote. At this meeting, there is no public comment, therefore instructions on how to speak to the subcommittee virtually are not issued. If you'd like to address the school committee, please comment at our regularly scheduled full school committee meeting, which is a week from tomorrow. We will start off with introductions. I'm going to start on this side of the table and go around to everyone that's attending this meeting today.
Good evening. My name is Gary Frisch. I'm the CFO.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Frontier. I'm the finance director.
Hello, I'm Amy Pasquarello. I'm the assistant superintendent.
Ben Lummis, I'm the superintendent.
Katie Provost, special education director.
Melissa Prince, school committee member.
Kathy Clancy, school committee member.
Bill Melvin, school committee member.
Andrea Perella, preschool director.
Matt Fusco, principal of East Veterans Elementary.
Dan Jewett, principal at Plum Cove Elementary.
Talina Immel, principal at West Parish.
Jody Gianotti, principal at Beeman.
And Maria Puglisi, recording secretary.
Thank you all very much for joining us tonight. This is exciting to start the fiscal year 2024 budget process. We are going to begin. Today's presentation has three separate departments, which is preschool, elementary school, and special education. So I'm just going to look to the superintendent. Are we going in that order?
Elementary school education, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we will start with the presentation from the preschool department.
Well, I'll give an intro.
Okay.
Maria Puglisi will open up the presentation. Here we have. And then I'll give folks introduction and a little background. Thank you, Maria.
Before we start, I just want to take note that school committee member Laura Wiesen and school committee member Sam Watson are attendees as well to observe the conversations we're having today.
All right, so we have our budget priorities presentation. So we have 3 BNF subcommittees this month, which go over our priorities for as we develop the FY 2024 budget. It's the school year 2023-2024. Begins July 1 of this year. You can go to the next slide, please. Go to the next slide. So we have a few guiding principles for the FY 2024 budget development. First and foremost, it's aligned or will be aligned with a 3-year plan for ongoing improvement for the Gloucester Public Schools. And those 4 priorities for our plan for ongoing improvement are deepen student belonging and engagement, strengthen instruction and better connect general education and special education. So we're working as a full team across all of our schools and grades and departments, and are really utilizing both general education and special education to the best of our ability. Strengthen social, emotional learning, and mental health support. This has always been important, and Gloucester has put in a really strong levels of staff members across this, and we're coordinating those services better than ever, and we'll need to continue to deepen those supports. And then the last priority from the plan for ongoing improvement is strengthening special education through improved coordination of services and specialized instruction. You will see our intention, and you will see that the budget priority presentations that will happen over the next 3 meetings will support and be connected to these priorities, and we'll sort of lay that out for folks. Next is building a budget based on the current fiscal realities. So we're seeing really 2 significant disruptions or impacts on our budget planning, and that's significant cost increases to all transportation services. That's inside our district for our regular busing program, and then also out of district transportation services. So those students who are in out of district placements and need to be transported to those services or those schools, programs. Then also significant increases in out-of-district tuition rates and also placements as well. So, and those are impacting this fiscal year and next fiscal year. And then the last piece is building a budget based on our current program realities, and that really means about the growing numbers of students with complex needs and that's learning needs and also social emotional needs across our schools, and also investing in O'Malley. We talked about having significant investments in instruction and curriculum at our elementary school, and continue to do so at the high school as well. But O'Malley has not had that same level of investment over the last number of years. So we want to make sure that we support O'Malley's curriculum review, instructional improvement. Those are the guiding principles for as we develop the budget. Oh, sorry, can you change the slide, please? And then so the budget calendar. So we're gonna this is the calendar. We started within the team here, this team and other folks, district leadership team working on our budget in December. And really the initial planning by the finance department in November, along with me. And right now we're in this green bar, which are the 3 presentations for the different departments and schools. We initially had planned to have food service, transportation, and IT last week, but just because of the scheduling staff, we need to reschedule that. And then the next step will be the CFO presents a district budget to the BNF, this same committee on February 1st. And then we go through the rest of the various steps of the public hearing process. The public budget process. Really tonight is the first step of that public budget process. So can you change the slide, please? And then you see we continue do a public hearing. School committee votes on a public hearing budget. That goes to public hearing. We submit, ultimately, the school committee votes to submit the budget for 2024 to the mayor. That then starts the city council side of the process, and then it returns after a city council vote on our total appropriation in June, returns back to the school committee for a final vote, which actually probably would be June 21st instead of June 28th. We can just change that date on the future. June 28th should be June 24th.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm going to focus on the blue and the green here. The blue, when we get to come to you on February 21st, come to the BNF committee, at that point, we'll be providing numbers, the draft budget total, significant changes in the budget, including recommended any additions or reductions. We'll talk about average tuition, circuit breaker, and also federal and state grant adjustments. So those are sort of the big shifts, or the notable shifts within the budget. But that's when we'll present numbers in dollars to you. If you go to the next slide, please. For tonight and for our next 3 BNF meetings, this is what we'll be focusing on. Every school or school level and also departments will be explaining to you their areas of strength, their priorities for school year 23-24, and what and how those priorities connect to our plan for ongoing improvement. The work they're already doing in these priority areas, and then also what they need to continue to do in the upcoming years to further strengthen those priorities. It is very likely and actually intentional that you will see a lot of connection between last year or this current year and next year. Okay, that isn't meant to bore you. It's meant to just help folks that you understand and the public understands that we continue doing the same work because it takes a while to deepen and strengthen the work in certain areas in any significant area, whether that's mental health support, special education, instructional improvement, curriculum. And so typically we need to stick with priorities for a number of years rather than changing year to year and going back and forth and making people crazy. Try to avoid that in general. And I think, and then the goals for these, so that really sort of speaks to this slide, which is the goals for our budget priority presentations is first to launch the public component of the budget development process, update the work of the committee on the work done so far on the process of creating a budget. We've already done that. And then provide the committee and therefore the public with the basis for the FY 2024 budget and illustrate the connections between the plan for ongoing improvement, our strengths, and our ongoing efforts to strengthen our priorities. So again, as I said, no dollars in these about priorities and what our work is. And these meetings will then inform the budget development. And you should see the budget, particularly any change in the budget reflected, that it reflects the priorities and strengths you see presented to you. So I think that's all. I've got to go. We will now have the preschool.
So let me just ask
oh,
the
yeah.
group, do either of you have any questions on the process before we go forward?
Not at this time.
The only thing I'd ask you, and you will see that, I'll explain that process to you a number of times because so don't get bored with that. I often will do doing it for the folks who are listening, okay? And that group may change. So
And
just-
there's, yes, right, tomorrow night it might be
Right,
different.
but different group of people, I want them to understand the process as well. So
Yep.
bear with me. So I'm going to hand over to Andrea Corella, our director of the Gloucester Preschool. And she's going to give you an update on not only the priorities of the preschool, but also the minnows at the preschool. Correct?
So yes, we have minnows represented on our slides because we have decided this year our mascot will be the minnows. So we are the Gloucester Preschool Minnows. So I figured we'd share that out today at this first meeting with you. And we can go to the next slide. We will be talking about our areas of strength, priorities for the upcoming school year, work that we already have going on in our priorities, and further strengthening our priorities. I do want to let you know I probably will go a little rogue other than what is on my slide because I can't seem to keep everything as concise as it is. I'll do my best. So strengths that we have already going on. I'm new to Gloucester Preschool. I was hired in August as the preschool director, and I arrived to find that the Gloucester Preschool has a very strong reputation in the community. I've received a lot of positive feedback from families who have had their children enrolled either as a peer model or a child who was receiving their special education services there. So it was not an area where I feel like we needed to really focus on, just build upon. So that is something that was going great. I was really happy to find that when I walked in the door. Another successful, something successful that I've seen going on in the building is the team approach. So our staff does work with an interdisciplinary team, and they have already had in place upon my arrival there that on a monthly basis, each classroom preschool teacher meets with ancillary service. So we would have PTs, OTs, speech language pathologists, the BCBA is there. I attend, and our special education coordinator is also there, and we take that as an opportunity to kind of troubleshoot. So talk about what's working with the students that are in the program, and also address any types of issues that we need to feel like we might need to either enter a referral for that student, look for additional services, or see how we can maybe bring the parent more into the atmosphere of what's happening. So that was already being done and in place and still going on. Super successful. So no changes made there. A continuum of services. So I did find in the preschool that there is a continuum of services that was already in place, in that students were able to be referred for special education services and have the ability to be treated in the least restrictive environment, which is by law, special education. We want to start with least restrictive and then move through there as we're seeing the needs increase. That is something that was in place. So a good foundation was laid. Some work to be done. So, but the bones were there, and we're building upon that as well. Something else that was in place and working really well for the preschool was the social emotional learning. So our school had piloted Second Step. The school adjustment counselor was working already collaboratively with the staff to provide in-classroom support for students with social emotional concerns at the preschool level. That was really bubbling up due to COVID and kids not having a lot of exposure to peers. So that was already in place. They were on top of that. Those services were in place for special education as well as general education. But what we saw and was already identified and carried over into there.
No.
Sorry, it's not like the Grammys. So they have in place a parenting course, which is free for the families in Gloucester. We primarily focused on preschool age children. We did provide childcare for that, as well as food for families. So they could come, feed themselves, feed their children, and then participate in a parenting class. A reason that that is really important, and we'll continue to do this, is because when you're dealing with 3 to 5 year olds who are having social and emotional issues, you're going to reach them obviously through their caregivers. So giving them the support that they need to better care for their children and provide that support is something that's in place, and we're looking to do that biannually through the preschool program. And I think we've talked about extending it to kindergarten families, but that hasn't been rolled out yet. So these were all things that were going very well. Any questions?
I was gonna ask how frequent, but you
Oh.
answered.
Yeah. You can go to the next slide. Okay. Priorities that we're going to be focusing on. So much of what I'm going to talk about aligns with the special education initiatives that were being rolled out by the district. Preschool in a public school district is primarily a special education service. It's why we provide service by law. When a child turns 3 years old and transitions into the preschool from early intervention, we're responsible for them, age 3 to 22 years old. So really, everything that we're focusing on is reaching and teaching those students and providing them exactly what they need. Our peer models come in to provide support for the special education students, and they are super important to our program because they are truly who the students learn from and model their behavior after. And we want to make sure that their needs are met as well. From my lens, I want to focus primarily right now on this initiative through special education. So the first thing that we're talking about is the continuum of classroom programming and services that provides programming in the least restrictive environment and adequately meets the needs of our special education population, which is priority number 4 in the plan for ongoing improvement through the district. This is something that, like I said, the bones were there, but we need to continue to work on that because there was some compromise to the integrity of the program for the students with special education needs, in that placements weren't being made with fidelity through data collection, evaluation, and continuous assessment. So we're working on making sure that we're placing students in the correct placement, that we're monitoring their progress within the correct placement, and then evaluating to make decisions about further placements going forward. That's something we're going to continue working on, and we have started, but there's still work to be done. Something else is to support this is the data collection to help us make these recommendations for service delivery and IEP development. What I found was that a lot of this was done just through subjective data and not a lot of information through evaluations to support the decisions that are being made. And some decisions were being made for what would be nice or to accommodate schedules, which is wonderful. And that's what we kind of want to do, is accommodate schedules and what families need, but also we want to make sure that we're supporting our special education students as they should be supported. So we're going to work towards that. Using different tools, we've already rolled out the Brigance, and I'm right now looking to adopt a screening tool that can be used quarterly to monitor progress and help us make decisions and support our goal writing. The next thing is strengthen the relationships with preschools in the community through the development of an itinerant staff. So something that I found when I came into the district was kind of that rub between how do we support the district and the families within our district and their needs, as well as the special education needs of the students in the community. In trying to do both, our program was really bubbling up and continues to bubble up. So did some research, and I reached out to some area early childhood centers that are already housing our students, but they're being transported back and forth. And we put our heads together to develop something called an itinerant staff. So what that would mean is that an early childhood teacher, speech and language pathologist, occupational therapist, physical therapist would be hired by the district to go and support our students who are placed at other early childhood centers like Pathways for Children and the YMCA. They're primarily who we're partnering with right now because they're the ones who we have co-placed the most amount of students. So in doing that, it is one way that we'd be able to meet the needs of our community, in that parents may need their children in childcare that goes beyond 12:30, 2:30, 5 o'clock, or even some families. We're able to support them through having them access their programs through Pathways or the YMCA, but also be able to support their special education needs in that one place.
Can I ask a question as we go, or do you want me to wait until the end?
This is a big time, Justin.
Okay, thank you. So I'm hearing that an ask could be that we provide services to these other programs. So I guess my question is, Pathways being a federal program, and the Y, I don't know if they receive some sort of grants, they wouldn't have their staff include these types of positions?
No, so they can't provide special, public school districts are responsible primarily for any special education
Right.
services that
Okay.
are delivered, especially IEP execution. we have put in to be considered for a grant. Partnering with them, it's the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative. So if that's something that we receive, we'll know in a month, then that would be something that the grant would fund.
So the parents don't have a responsibility if their child has special needs to have their child enroll in the school program, they can still go to another program and
They
we
could-
would provide services to that program.
So they would register in the district because they would be receiving services from Gloucester Public Schools.
Okay.
But they would receive their services where their parent, they've been parentally placed due to parental needs.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand, I didn't hear this
And
before,
this
so
isn't, I mean,
this is new to me to hear.
yeah, so let me just add, so we are, a couple different things. We're providing services only to a number of students already.
Yeah.
Meaning they're not enrolled in the preschool program, maybe this sort of thing today.
Early intervention.
Yeah, but this, instead of them coming to the preschool for services only, or having those services happen at one of our elementary schools, we're now able to provide those services which are obligated to provide at the place those students already are, pathways or lot, which makes it much better for those families. It also allows us, if we need to, we have limitations at the size of our preschool, the number of classrooms. And so instead of having to add a whole nother classroom there, because we can't provide service to those students outside of the classrooms, this allows us to sort of extend the number of students where we can engage with, even though we have limitations of classrooms at the actual building.
I just didn't realize how big picture it was.
Just to add one more thing, part of this too, I think the grant came out of the fact that with COVID, we are seeing such a drastic increase in referrals at the preschool level. So with that increase in referrals, we need to be able to figure out a way to support and meet their needs. And if our program's at capacity, we don't have the space to meet their needs. We need to explore other ways to do that. And I think that's where the grant came from, is to help support multiple districts, because I think every district is finding these difficulties right now. That the referrals are really, really high, and that they're not able, our programs are becoming more just for special education students at the preschool level, that there isn't the room to have all of the students that we want. So.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just thought.
And we did all the research on this, so we did all the research on it.
I know the early intervention happens generally within a child's home, right?
Yeah.
At 2.9. Do we also provide services in home after 2.9?
So,
Meaning if they're not enrolled in the Y or
no,
pathways, no,
so, and
they come
like,
to us. or
yes,
them.
they come to us, or their parents have them parentally placed in another setting. So this itinerant team right now is specifically where YMCA and Pathways for Children that we partnered with. Bigger picture, down the road, all area childhood centers would be able to access special education services through Gloucester Public Schools. Other districts like Northampton is doing this, and they've bubbled up to, they have 4 itinerant teams that are moving throughout the district servicing the kids. Another reason why this makes a lot of sense is for kindergarten readiness. You guys are doing this. Children are coming into kindergarten with different levels of readiness, and that's something that Commonwealth has kind of looked at, and how can they improve upon that? And by having the itinerant team and streamlining what the kids are being exposed to, and having our public school staff in more settings, they're going to come to preschool with more of a, hopefully, even readiness skills, so that we're not seeing like splinter skills popping up in some kids requiring so much more than others, but not in the home. We have to be in the center. Okay. So that is that.
Yeah, just a quick one. It's gonna come out as a rather odd question, but who makes the initial referral that a kid needs, because a child needs special
It's a
ed
good question. So they come to us, either they're generated automatically through early intervention. So if a parent has had a child 0 to 3 years old and pediatrician says your child's having some speech and language issues, you might want to call the school. That would either come generated from the family, or if a parent calls early intervention, they're working with early intervention services. early intervention is watching the clock for the timeline for transition, and then they would reach out to us. So it's either a family referral or early intervention referrals.
And do we, and I'm only asking because I'm curious, Andrew, do we confirm that? Is there any type of confirmation process with
Yep.
that? Or?
There is a process in place. So Rachel Clemenzi, she is the special education coordinator at the preschool level. She works with early intervention, our area early intervention, and meets with them on a monthly basis to talk about students who we can foresee, are going to require special education services and will be referred. That starts 6 months before their 3rd birthday, so that we can predict what our numbers are going to look like. Kind of, we can see the referrals that are coming up. This age is so developmental, so they could end up, fine by the time they're 6 months in the life of a little kid is a lot in terms of development, but that kind of gives us an idea about who's coming. And then parent referrals happen.
Yeah.
We don't always know when they're coming and how. The more conversations you have in the public, the more we talk about this, there probably will lead to more referrals because parents are getting more educated about what their kids should not be doing at certain ages. But we're not automatically saying, if a parent calls and says, I have a concern over X, Y, or Z thing, we don't necessarily have to go to the referral level. We can have conversations with families, we can offer additional supports, we can bring the children in, send them home with a packet, go work with your child on these things for the next 6 weeks, and then bring them back to us. So we're really trying to make sure the kids that are coming into our special education program require
Those services, yeah, good. And that's the answer to my question.
And it's a process.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Getting it all where it needs to be.
And Andrew, I think I'm right. The work you just described is really a chunk of the second priority.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of those IEP development and assessment evaluation and making sure it's, a little more rigorous, a little more systematic. Yeah. That's how that ties into this.
It all ties in.
Thank you for that explanation. It's helpful, Josh.
Okay. Slide. I'm already down at number 5. All right, the work we're already doing. So I've talked about, the needs, where we need to go and what I'd like to see happen in terms of curriculum. We haven't yet really gone too deep since I've been in the preschool around curriculum and what that's going to look like, but already in place, the teachers are all using the lively letters on a daily basis. They're using second step SEL curriculum on a daily basis. And the school adjustment counselor is working inside of the classroom to support that, as well as she's able to work with smaller groups if necessary with students that have been identified. School adjustment counselor can work with gen ed and special ed children, so it's not something that we have to have said you have an emotional disability in order to access. All kids can access that. What we have worked a lot towards this year is more community outreach. So getting families involved, we did start a PTO. We've had a few meetings. We don't have that many money in the bank. That's gonna happen. We have done events with the city that has already set up. So the Halloween fair that went on, we brought a table, just kind of letting people know who we are, what we're about. We bring in Wiggles and Giggles, Curious Creatures. We worked with the Glass Maritime Touch Tanks this year. They came in, and Art Haven has worked with us as well, the police department and the fire department and Backyard Growers. So we're going to continue just to strengthen what's going on already in the community. Part of that is because we are the first space that many people deal with when you're sending your child to the Gloucester Public Schools. When you have a positive experience at the preschool level, that then lends to a positive experience at the kindergarten level. So I feel like it's really important, and family engagement is huge across the board, but at this level especially because parents have that transition can be really challenging. So establishing that relationship and creating trust is important. So that's a goal that's happening with our enrichment. Collecting data and analysis we did last year. So at the end of the school year last year, they did start conversations around data collection, evaluation, and what are we using to make placement decisions? And Rachel and Katie had piloted the use of the Brigance evaluation assessment tool. As of today, the majority of our early childhood teachers are able to use the Brigance assessment. They are using it. We are using it for 90% of kids that come in for an evaluation. So prior to this being rolled out, we weren't using an assessment tool to identify our academic needs and pre-academic. They were being placed into programs without any real understanding as to why we were there. And then going on to kindergarten with really no data about how they should be performing and what their teachers should look like or should expect for them to look like. So that is in place. And we're just working on the comfort level with that, you know, taking that information. We've put into place an arena style assessment around that. I won't get into all that, but that's happening. And then our BCBA is working with staff on collecting data around children who have been placed in programs but require specific data collection around their goals, and having the teachers independently taking that data and then reporting it back at those team meetings that we hold monthly. The community partnerships, we have partnered with the Gloucester High School transition team. So Katie, at the start of the year, immediately put me in touch with the high school transitional teacher to have the students who are in that 18 to 22-year-old population who are looking for vocational experiences to partner with us. So they come to our school every morning and deliver breakfast in all the classrooms, and they come in they shift out, and then we have the afternoon kiddos come in and deliver lunch to the classrooms. They are partaking in various activities around the building. So staff knows that if they have something that needs to be shredded or filed or laminated, created, they're working with our program on a daily basis. That has been super fun. And they're really happy to be a part of our 2 Blackburn Drive community. We are partnering with Pathways for Children in Cape Ann. So I meet with Pathways pretty much, we're on a weekly basis where I'm meeting with Pathways and the YMCA just to talk about what's going on in all of our programs and how we can better meet the needs of the kids. And I told you the itinerant team has been developed. So we actually do have in place right now an itinerant team that is going to be going out to Pathways and the YMCA starting on February 6th. So a teacher has been identified. Additional staff that we have in place will be used. And we are looking to hire an occupational therapist for this. And we did submit the CPPI grant for consideration. Any questions about any of that? Yes,
How much is the grant that we're applying for?
$330,000 for 5 months. So right now, this is we're cohort 4 that we applied. It's a year-long grant, but for whatever reason, from February to July, they're just doing a 5-month period. And then we have to reapply in June for every 3 years.
Okay.
So
That's been applied for?
that's what,
Been applied for?
yep, we submitted it on Friday and we should know at the beginning of February. That's something that we're receiving.
And then one other quick question, you cutely said there's no money in the bank yet.
In my
For the
PTO.
So let me ask, what would, because we never had a PTO budget, preschool budget anyway, so what would that?
It doesn't have, so basically, we have had like our preliminary meetings. I just did outreach to the families. We came in for a meet and greet.
But what would that money be used towards? Like, is there something you're trying to raise
Enrichment.
with, or just?
Yeah, just enrichment for
Okay.
the kids, family engagement activities. We talked
Okay.
about doing like a snow festival in February where the money would just be for us to be able to actually provide free experiences for families and their children in our school. Come in, like do crafts, things like that, kind of rotating through the classroom, storybook reading.
Okay.
But yeah, that we have to work on together.
Thank you.
I'm not asking for anything.
In line with you being
Yeah,
out in the community,
Yes.
has preschool been part of Countdown to Kindergarten before? Because that might be a nice, because every kid comes in usually with their younger sibling. It might be a nice hello opportunity, because if their older one did not need those services, no one's familiar with preschool unless you actually either have a friend who has a child or your child, but that might not be a bad approach.
Love to do it.
Well, and you'll also be able to see off some of the preschoolers
Mhm.
to their kindergarten principals.
Or a countdown to preschool. Have a separate school. Is
That
that
would
way
be
you're
fun.
targeted towards
For
the,
our peers and the kiddos that are
Mhm.
gonna be going.
that way you can rally the.
They would love that. That's a really good idea. Because this time of year, especially, I'm having a lot of parents who are thinking ahead that their children are turning 3 and they're anxious. So something like that, I think. would be
And a lot of
really
parents don't know what we do. I'm learning more what we do and I've been here. You know, did you have a question?
Yeah, just 2 quick things. One is, talk, if you would, give me a 30-second. I wrote down the second step. What is second? Give me a 30-second
Second step
snapshot.
curriculum, so it's social and emotional curriculum for kiddos who are all grade levels. Go through, is the second step through elementary?
So the phasing.
You are.
You're phasing it out,
We're going to another, we're piloting.
and that pilot is trails.
I think the reason we're not is because trails did not go down to the preschool level. So basically, it's just a child to identify, teaching them how to identify their feelings, and then once they're able to identify, they can't always. Frustration is usually how their feelings come out. It's tears, anger, tantrums. So just giving them, feelings to look at and assess and kind of identify what your face might look like, what your body's like, feel like, and then how to regulate that, where to go with those feelings. They're puppets.
If you want to join in there.
Was a little too much right there. Going out with you, kind of look at me like maybe you need that, Mr.
I've known him a long time.
And the second thing is, just quickly, this is the first time I've heard you speak, and you've done a wonderful job. Can you give me a 30-second snapshot of where you came from? How did you end up in the preschool director's role?
30 seconds. My last job, I was in the Stoughton Public School District. I was the special education coordinator for the elementary schools and the preschools. So they were doing some structural reorganization. I have a passion for special education and preschool and problem solving. So I didn't realize that I'd be doing as much problem solving as I do. So I saw the job, I interviewed, I got offered 2 other positions, but I really loved Gloucester. I like the team that I interviewed with. The community is very warm. Plus, I like Gloucester to visit. So I chose to come here. Very happy I did. Me too.
Thank you. You did a wonderful job. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm going to summarize the last things. Because I think I've gone on for too long. But basically, just further strengthening our priority areas. One thing that needs to happen, and I think it's kind of across the district, is entrance and exit criteria for placement, is being really specific about who's going where. And even with that itinerant team, that's something we need to do. This data analysis. So like I had said prior, is we do want to make sure that we're using something quarterly, so that when we are sending home our progress reports, special education and not special education, that we're able to see that they're making progress in the areas we want to see them making progress. And if they're not, using that information to help us make sure that they're going to. I talked about curriculum and just making sure that we're aligning with our community partners. Pathways and the YMCA are both doing really awesome things. And because they are federally mandated, they do have to have a curriculum that's in place, and they're seeing a lot of success with that. So not only, I just think we're going to learn a lot from each other partnering together. And I do want to look into the curriculum that they're using for our district, and then the itinerant team coming together to support our kiddos who are placed outside of our program, who require longer days, or their parents are not able to get them to us, making sure that they're able to get their services. That is it. Do you have any other questions?
No, as it is, excellent presentation. So good to hear from you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Good to be here.
Thank you very much. And I just want to I think it's clear, folks, but Andrew's really stepped in and doing a really nice balance of, supporting your team, getting to know your team, first of all, which you've done very, very well, connecting with the team, getting to know them, but then also really making some, manageable improvements and things, not going too far too fast. But really working with them to both understand the why behind the changes, but also make sure they see the value of the changes too. And so, but bit by bit, and I think making some, really trying to bring the preschool from where it's been, which has been very strong, to the next level. And I hope you see some consistency with what we've been doing at the other levels, looking at data, looking at quality curriculum, and also as we are across the board, really strengthening processes around special education. So thank you, Andrew. Thanks a lot. All right, next up, we'll go from preschool to elementary school. We have the 4 schools that we'll have in place next year represented. And I'll let you guys take it from here.
So I'm gonna get us started by presenting our areas of strength as the place that we start our work. As Superintendent Lummis mentioned, many of our goals are very large goals that take us some time to build and strengthen over the years. So you'll hear a lot of information that you heard last year, but hopefully each year we're bringing you some new components that we're looking to add on to build upon that success. And as the four principals, we work on this collaboratively because it is important to us that our schools are well aligned and that the experience for all elementary children across the city is uniform. So I'm just going to highlight our areas of strength across our elementary schools as our starting point, and then my colleagues will take you into some of the work that we're planning on for the coming year. Our collaboration across all schools is very strong. Teachers and administrators across our elementary schools are collaborating. We're working together to use common professional development across all of our schools, and our day-by-day operations are very well aligned. We have many math leaders and literacy leaders, which are teachers that are working across the district to help us bring our new programs into focus and to support our teachers as they learn many of the new programs that we've taken on. And of course, our ELA and math coaches are working every day in the buildings to support our teachers. We very much appreciate the fairly new addition of our math coaches, which has made a big difference in all of our schools. And of course, the longstanding work that our ELA coaches have done as well. Our high quality, consistent curriculum is definitely a point of pride across all of our elementary schools. We have our updated math and focus curriculum, and we are working in our 2-year rollout. We're in the first official year of our Wit and Wisdom rollout for ELA instruction across our schools. Our response to intervention work, this year we have really added on quite a bunch of features and some professional development. We have some data meetings going on during our common planning time, which is happening at all of our schools. We are consistently progress monitoring to use that data to inform our instruction and where we're going next. And we have some child study work going on as well to make sure that we're aligning our work and getting students the extra supports they need, both just in tier 2 intervention, but if they need to move on in the special education process as well. We are also built on our social emotional learning. We increased our school adjustment counselors and psychologists, and we have coordinated their efforts through our mental health director. They are collaborating with our classroom teachers to build on our social emotional programs. Trails was mentioned earlier, which is the new program that we are piloting in the elementary schools. And we have built strong attendance teams to really look at what the pitfalls are of students regularly attending school and how we can best support them to be in school and support our initiative of Everyday Matters. We are supporting our EL students and families through increased staffing and programming and increasing our parent outreach. And we have added quite a lot in terms of language and translation services, both with in-person translators that are working in our schools every day and translating the paperwork that goes out in written form, and also services that are available to us if we need to dial in to get somebody quickly on a phone to make conversation with a parent to get a point across or to understand what it is that they're trying to tell us. And then, of course, our staff is phenomenal across all Gloucester schools. Our faculty, our nurses, our support staff is really just superb. They work very hard. They work to make sure that they're aligned with our goals for ongoing improvement and our individual goals across schools. And they're really here for all the right reasons for our children.
I have a quick question for Jody before we go on. You talked about the attendance of these meetings. Do you feel the modification of our policy has helped? Have you seen any results in that?
It's really forced us to be very proactive with families and get on the telephone with them and have some real live conversations and try to better understand what is getting in the way. So before that, it was like a letter that went out. And there wasn't a whole lot of conversation until we were at a point that was very critical in the students' attendance. We're starting much earlier and being much more proactive to support families and learn what's in the way of them attending.
And do you feel you can meet that need, or do you feel?
I think we're still working on that.
Still
Yeah,
working on it, okay.
Post-COVID still remains a struggle for us
Yeah.
attendance wise.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah. Yeah, I just a comment more than anything else, but put the policy forth and I was like, wow, this is a great new policy. This is the cure all right here. And then after talking to some people, I've realized, yeah, there's a lot of work to do still.
It's an excellent first step. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
a cure-all, but it's an excellent first step.
I would say a positive is that the work that we did this year with our staff, our teachers own part of it too, which was a needed component for them to reach out and say, we missed you. Is there anything I can do to help you? Like we need him or her here every day. I think that teacher connection to the parents, like we're on your team, was a very big positive to the policy change.
The oomph it gives us and the motivation and the sort of direction, it gives the teams and schools and then across the schools as well is it's hard for that level of energy and focus to happen without the shift in policy.
Right.
It's sort of like a foundational element. It can be done without a change in policy, but the change in policy gives it a lot of strength and a strong foundation. But it does take, as folks are driving, it'll take years to really change practice forward.
So I get to give kind of the overview of our three priorities, which remain very consistent to what you saw last year. And again, it's about not changing course year after year. And that starts with quality instruction, both on the tier 1 level, general education, everybody to tier 2 and tier 3 in terms of more specialized instruction, special education that students need. And so again, I'm just going to give an overview and then Talina is going to kind of dive into each of these, but at its core, from the curriculum that we're implementing in wisdom to the staff we're hiring to the coordination of services, this is the biggest bucket of work to be done is in providing high quality instruction that we've been doing and continuing to make it better day in and day out. 2 is attendance, as we just talked about. I think we've made progress. We've built our attendance teams, and it is about meeting people family by family and working to understand what the barriers are. Post-COVID remains, the pandemic remains disruptive in the sense of either breaking habits of getting into school day in and day out to also people who are very well intentioned and want to make sure their kid isn't spreading sickness and trying to find that balance. I think all families are trying to do what is right, and but we're still certainly recovering from the pandemic. And third, as part of that, social emotional support, as Matt mentioned earlier, we're pivoting to a new social emotional program called Trails. But beyond that, really, again, looking at the whole child, providing them high quality instruction, and meeting their needs, whether it be with the social emotional curriculum or just in terms of our day in, day out support that we provide through our school adjustment counselors and our psychologists and our faculty as a whole. And so I'll turn it over to Selena.
Thank you. All right. So what are we currently doing? One of the things we've been doing this year in our staff meetings is kind of talking about each of the goals of the plan for ongoing improvement and what their staff are seeing this year. So what we're doing now lines up with that. Last year was our first year using Math in Focus, the newer version for everyone. What we also did was we had meetings of all of
a representative at each grade from all 5 schools. They met with the coaches, they did the work. So we have our curriculum and then we have our district documents that help us with pacing and alignment so that we all stay consistent across the 5 and then going to 4 schools. So that work of just having an updated math and focus curriculum is multi-tier to keep us all going in the same direction. And our math leaders meet once a month with our math coaches and continue to support our teachers. So teacher leadership. So this little tiny piece that says updated math and focus is really just so much more complex than that work, because we want teacher leaders, we have our coaches, we have our district documents, and then we have the fidelity to the curriculum that we're implementing. So similarly, we have a new ELA curriculum this year. What we're working on is about half of our teachers in each building are implementing wit and wisdom this year, and then the other half will implement it next year. And then we have we've said, you know, we need to bring back a literacy leader, that teacher leader in each of those areas, so that again, the teachers are the voice in there and helping us know how and what we need to do to keep us all 4 schools aligned with each other and meeting the needs of our students. We'll continue after we complete implementation to create those district documents to say, how do we move forward from here? Then at the building level, and then sharing that out, the principals and coaches do this all the time. We have our data meetings, we have our common planning time, and then we talk about really where are we globally as a grade? And then how do we need to support students who are either exceeding our expectations for grade level or need additional support? And how do we then give explicit instruction in those areas to help students get to that area? We've talked about attendance a lot. We've had increased communication, we're monitoring, but really those conversations with families are what takes us the furthest. And so we're having lots of conversations with families who are struggling. The social emotional support, as Andrea mentioned earlier, and Katie and other people, one of the real positives that I've seen around social emotional support is our school adjustment counselor and our school psychologists are being preventative with the trails work. They're getting into every class, they're learning the students, they're teaching some lagging skills that we all are seeing post-COVID. And we're really, we're probably, I know at least for us, I think it's everywhere, we're seeing a shift away from that small group or one-on-one work to that grade level teaching of skills that is necessary to help students be successful, regulating themselves, their emotions, problem solving. And so that's really been exciting work for us. And then I'll pass it to Matt for the future.
Great. Yes, so we talked about how things look sort of the same. So we've talked about almost everything that's up there for our priority areas. The thing that we like about the plan for ongoing improvement is that it allows us to really stay focused on our 4 priorities. So we've talked about just about everything here, but curriculum, we talked about math and focus. So we're just going to continue to work strengthening that with the implementation of it. And of course, the ELA rollout of wit and wisdom throughout the schools. So schools have different grades trying out wit and wisdom right now. We're all monitoring it, keeping a close eye on it to see how it's going. I think we've all been very excited with how it's been going right now. And the teachers seem to be very enthusiastic about it. So we're going to keep moving forward with
Can I
that.
ask a question on that?
Sure.
I asked earlier when Talina brought it up. So it's not like half the school, your school is doing it and half the students aren't, it's half the schools in the district? Like, would we have 2 schools that are doing it and 2 that are not? How is that working as far as?
So at each building, it's slightly different. So what we did was we took the people, the teachers who were piloting wit and wisdom last year,
Yeah,
we completed that grade.
okay,
And then any new teachers, we didn't have them, if we hired a teacher this summer, we didn't have them use a program that we were discontinuing. They all started with the new program.
okay.
So at West Parish, it's all of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th and one other teacher.
Okay.
And so it's different in every building. It's not consistent right
But
now.
Every school is trying, is.
Yeah, every
has some
school's
capacity. Okay.
different grades. Yeah,
About every school has at least half of the teachers doing it.
correct.
With the goal being that
next year.
Everyone's gonna be doing it by the end of next year.
Yes.
It's like a 2-year rollout.
the beginning of next year.
Or September.
And other teachers are coming within the building, teachers that aren't doing it are looking at the teachers that are doing it, asking questions,
Working out the quirks. and
working
stuff.
out, yeah.
So the thought behind that is to develop experts within the building. So teachers who piloted last year, they're on their second time around and they're a little stronger. And then their colleagues at their grade level are learning it with them. Next year, when we have everybody teaching it, we'll have our literacy leaders and we'll have our go-to people of, you know, this is how the program works, this is how we can support. And so we're building capacity by building experts within each building.
Basically, teachers are training teachers. I mean,
Well, they can be mentors and
Drag along, yeah.
collaborate together and kind of model how the program goes.
Jerry, could you just give an example of, I know some of your teachers visited East Boston, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Can you just give that example?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I have teachers that are brand new this year. West Parish had a couple at that very same grade level who had piloted the year before, so. You know, we're a little deeper into the program and I was able to send my group over to watch a lesson. It's one thing to hear about it, to read about it, but to be able to see it in action and to see it in action at the grade level that you teach with the components that you're using is really beneficial to them.
Great. Social emotional learning support. We talked about the Trails curriculum, so we will be reviewing that pilot, how it's been going. Veterans are doing it in kindergarten right now, so we've been talking about how it's been going, things that it could need to supplement it if we need necessary, but right now we're just going through that right now, looking at it. Then we'll start discussing those next steps throughout the schools. We'll come together towards the end of the year to figure out how it went and expand it. And then, of course, our continued collaboration with the clinical staff. So our school adjustment counselors are meeting weekly with Amy Kim, the head of mental health for the district, and Lynn Lyons too. And so they're collaborating constantly. That's fairly new for us. So and we're getting a lot out of it. So that's been really helpful. So we're going to continue that. Tiered supports and response to intervention. Like Dan said, we're going to continue to provide the targeted interventions for students, especially those that are needing tier 2 and tier 3 supports. Again, keep progress monitoring how students are doing, which is a constant all the time going on, both formally and informally. Data meetings, common planning times, how we adjust those interventions. So it's like you're not just hung up on one thing, it's constantly changing, like a living, breathing thing. And then, of course, always strengthening our collaboration between regular education and special education teachers. And English learner support. Again, strengthen, we've come a long way for ELL support, excuse me, over the years. So we're going to continue that. So both instruction, collaboration between our English language teachers, classroom teachers, and special educators. So they're continue to keep them all working together is the key. Sheltered English immersion strategies into the curriculum. So all teachers have to be SEI endorsed, but it's learning about those strategies that help kids learn that can't speak English and using those constantly into the curriculum. So as we go around and we observe teachers and watch them work, and the coaches and everything else, trying to just keep embedding those strategies to help them. And then, of course, keep our family outreach to our EL populations to increase their involvement. So we've had EL parent coffee hours that were successful, and we're going to continue with that, working with Chris Castle out of the district office.
Yeah, just to highlight a couple of things. So on 3 there, the last bullet, strengthen collaboration with regular education and special education. But obviously, as you know, there's a bold headline here, what are priority on the plan on ongoing improvement, but that really is being led by Amy and Katie across schools, and requires a lot deeper collaboration between those 2 roles or individuals that we've had in the past, which is really great. Especially because there's a lot of alignment in terms of the practices, but then it also really requires the special education director and the principals being, coordinated and that sort of stuff in terms of what's happening in the schools as well. So we're trying to strengthen that as well, those relationships, that's crucial. I mean, nothing can happen in a building that isn't, aligned with what the principal is doing and thinking. So that's got to work very closely. And of course, on the staff level, then making sure there are common practices across education, social education, also common understanding of where we're headed towards a more inclusive practices. So that is, again, one of these things it's a bullet, but it requires leadership in this room, but then also alignment at each school level as well, across schools. That's a big thing. And the other piece I'd highlight English learner stuff is English learner support is, as Matt mentioned, and I think Jody as well, we've done a very nice job, and this was the support of the committee in supporting our families to feel more welcome, more at ease, more at home in our schools. That's through the translation that Jody talked about. That's through events that Matt discussed, and that's working quite well. Definitely, folks, our EL families feel more connected and more part of the school community. And then the next step for us, and Matt mentioned it, is how do we really make sure that our instructional practices in learner education are also top notch. And that's a place you've heard a little bit about now. You'll hear more when Chris Castle and Amy Pascal present to school committee next week about our English learner programs. But that's really the next step. We did a nice job on this acclimation, on this welcoming, on this community translation and access. Now we got to make sure that we do as strong a job on instruction and curriculum. So that's also part of the too.
Okay.
Questions, guys?
Any questions?
I looked down some notes, I can barely read them. What was it? Sorry. Social emotional program, trails, different than what you're doing in the preschool, which is second step. Does trails go down as far as preschool, or is that basically for?
No, it doesn't.
I do nothing.
No,
It's K through 12.
it's K through 12.
K through 12.
K through 12.
So second
for
steps is
trails.
wonderful for the preschool. Then when we starting at kindergarten, trails will follow through the rest
It's
of
good.
the class.
And and a couple other questions I had is, I think it was when we did the couple meetings ago, maybe to the full school committee, we had a presentation on the attendance policy. And I keep going back to, well, the parents have some skin in the game here too, and sometimes I think that it's overlooked or kind of put to the side a little bit. And I just want to make sure that we're getting, and it's all of our responsibilities to let them know that hey, it's not just, this is what you're missing, or this is what your Betty or Bobby's missing, and it's pretty serious stuff. So, and I think it's becoming more important as time goes on. The last thing I wanted to say was Wit and Wisdom. I'm a huge fan. I liked it so much, the book, The Knowledge Gap. It just was a tremendous gobble. I haven't read a book in that fast in years, but it's just some really good stuff. I'm a huge fan of Wit and Wisdom, and a huge fan of the elementary schools here in Gloucester. I'm amazed at how when I'm like out of town and I'm talking about the Gloucester Public Schools, people say I'm on the Gloucester School Committee, and I can't. I'm always so positive about the job that you guys are doing. So.
After you accept their sympathy for being on a school committee.
Yeah. Exactly. So I appreciate it. It's important to let you know that people do appreciate the work that you're doing. It is certainly recognized.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So explain how parent conferences are working currently. I think there are 3 times during the year. And how many families come the first time, the second scheduled time, and the third, as I think about our attendance and family connection.
So we were keeping track of, one of the things that as a leadership team we were talking about is how is family engaging. So I did a survey with my staff about who's connected on social media, who's come to conferences, who came to different things. I would say, so the first 2, it takes 2 days to get all of your class through. So in the fall, we have 2 days with an evening attached, and our goal is to get everyone. So I would say of our 18 regular ed classrooms. 50% of them had 100%, and then the other 50% had 1 to 3 who didn't come. And they, not for lack of trying, but just never had the follow through come through. And then in the March one, we typically say, if you're worried, I offer it to everyone, but then tell the parents who you really need to have a conference with. I really need to have a conference with you. Because there's not enough time to do the whole class a second time. That's how we've done it in practice
Yeah.
in the past.
The March one's very targeted.
So I have heard from parents who have been communicated by their teacher for, come in, I want to tell you how great your kid is. And they get there and they say, I want to tell you how great your kid is doing, and then how far it goes. So I know we target kids that may need more partnership or whatever, but sometimes it's the positive message too, and the getting to know the teacher, not just because there's something we're working on, but something I want to tell you that's something unique about your child and what they are accomplishing. So I just want to keep that in mind. I realize there's certain time constraints, but someone I know in the Salem Public Schools, all the teachers reach out and offer a home introductory visit with the family, and we'll go as teams to the house. The teachers will spend a half hour, 45 minutes, just talking and getting to know in a fun environment, a family. And I just think those kinds of, new ideas and ways to just to make that contact, because if they set good habits, as we know, that's which is what we're trying to do, and that connection, something might happen to make it fall down, but hopefully we built it up and actually it sticks up.
Can you just talk a little about just how you have helped reach out to your families in terms of getting?
Yeah, we started tracking it this year. So we have 92% engagement rate with families during our first parent-teacher conferences. So we saw 92% of them. And then I asked teachers to send me the names of the families they didn't engage. And again, just like attendance, trying to make sense of why that is. There's things are going really well, parents are away, family was sick. And then the people who, they were struggling to engage, then I engaged them about, I know Mrs. Smith reached out and we, want to check in, let you know how things are going, etc. But again, trying to, just like the attendance, know people, and know what their values are and trying to meet them where they're at.
Thank you. That's it. Moving on. Excellent. Thank you all. Come on.
Stick around.
Yeah, like.
No,
You want us to stay?
Yeah, of course. As an example of connecting general ed and special education, or.
And of course, my battery probably is gonna die.
Wait, I have a very large charger. Do you want to just take this?
Yeah.
Well, I'll start
Okay.
this way, but if it dies, I'm gonna see if my vision works. Just to start with our overall vision, it's the same as last year, really Gloucester Public Schools believes that students with disabilities should be educated to the maximum extent possible with their typically developing peers. Thank you, Amy. And our goal is to create inclusive environments for all learners by providing a continuum of supports and services to meet the individual needs of each student, promote individual growth and build. So I did like this comic strip, so I put this here, just because I feel like it really strongly goes along with our special education vision. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it says, could you please shovel the ramp? And the gentleman says, all of these other kids are waiting to use the stairs. When I get through shoveling them off, then I'll clear the ramp for you. And the students say, but if you shovel the ramp, I'll get it. So that's really kind of sums up my vision for special education, is to really be thinking about it as how do we meet the needs of all learners and support them. So, that's a good one.
Oh.
So you will see, I have some additional strength to highlight here. Since last year, as I've learned a lot more about the community and the school. And as Andrea spoke about, community partnerships too, you're gonna, between the transition program and the preschool, you're going to see some pictures embedded in that. So I did embed some pictures that I can talk a little bit about. The first three are exactly the same as last year. When I first started, I was able to see right away that we have a very caring and empathetic staff here in Gloucester, and everyone is really committed and dedicated to supporting our students, our schools, and our community. In regards to special education, we are really well staffed for special education services across the district. We have, in comparison to the state, we have higher supports around special education teachers and special education paraprofessionals related to the number of students that we have on IEPs. So we're well staffed within the structure that we have. And a strong culture, not only in our schools, but in our community overall. One of the things that I love best about working in the Gloucester Public Schools is seeing the community supports and being able to really see how the diverse needs in this district are met in our schools and within the community. Transportation and informational technology department collaboration. I could not do my job without the strong collaboration between the transportation and IT. We have students at our Gloucester High School transition program that are able to go to so many different places and get more enrichment and more opportunities because we have a transportation department that really supports meeting those needs. We have IT who, when we have a student who comes up and through an evaluation needs a communication device or some sort of assistive technology, whether it's Google Read and Write or an extension of that, they are so responsive. Both departments, super responsive, super collaborative, and I just wanted to be able to give a shout out to both of them. Constant moving pieces with out of district where one student is going to one place and then we have another student who needs a placement here, and transportation is, it's not an easy job right now, as you're going to see through some of the later slides around how costly special ed transportation is, but they work really hard to get our kids to where they need to be. A huge success this year, and Andrea highlighted it a little bit already, is around the district-wide program of collaboration. So our Gloucester High School transition program, which is 18 to 22-year-olds, we have really built some phenomenal opportunities for those students within the community and within our preschool. So the first step was working with the preschool and collaborating with the preschool on giving them opportunities for not only volunteer, like job embedded skills where they're coming and doing clerical assistant training or delivering lunches and building those pre-vocational skills, but we also have students that are getting paid internships. And then we have students that are doing on-the-job training and then getting jobs at Market Basket. So we have students within that transition program that have really had a lot of opportunities this year. And I've seen that collaboration between the two programs be such a benefit for not only our preschool, but for the high school students. And the growth that I've seen, the smiles that I see on their faces, the engagement and the pride they have on the job that they're doing and that they belong. It all goes with that vision. And just from, you know, day one, week one of students coming in and looking kind of shy and not, to now they're walking by my office. Hi, Katie, how you doing? How's your day? How was your weekend? Like, just, they're feeling like they really have a purpose. And then along with that are the strong community partnerships that we've been able to build, the high school transition program, as well as the preschool, and then the district overall. We've had really great success with the community partnerships. I have a picture here of Art Haven with our Gloucester High School transition students and the YMCA. We had talked about supporting through a grant, getting the students in the transition program memberships to the YMCA to really help them be able to
learn how to work out more independently. The YMCA, when we approached them with this, offered the memberships for free. So our students are able to access that. The transportation covers getting them there. They're going to the workout room, they're swimming, and they're just really building them, like their opportunities for future success in the community. So that's something that I'm really proud of and that has come a long way. Art Haven, we are using some grant funding this year to support students being able to go to Art Haven twice a week. The opportunities for them to get, it's more of like an enrichment type opportunity for them. So those are just a couple around that. The priorities have not changed at all since last year. They are the same 3 priorities and they go right along with our plan for ongoing improvement for strengthening special education. It's really around evaluation and identification of students with disabilities. And looking and digging deeper and determining making sure we're using the right assessments to understand what the disability category is and how we need to develop an IEP to meet their needs. Much of what Andrea talked about with preschool, we're doing that as a district, really looking at our evaluation systems and process and making sure that our staff understand how to administer the different assessments. And then we're up to date on the most recent assessments that give us the most information to help guide what is the specially designed instruction that we need. The specialized curriculum and teacher training, again, going along with what is the training that our special education teachers need in order to meet the needs of the students in front of them. We have students with different disability categories that may need different types of curriculum and methodologies. So making sure that all the staff have the training in how to understand the evaluations and then move it towards what does the IEP say and what is the specially designed instruction? And then how are they implementing that and collecting data around that to progress monitor and make sure that the outcomes for students are positive, that our students are making that effective progress, just like all the other students. And then the inclusive practices. This is work that we really just started, like Amy and I have just started with this committee and getting this work kind of from the foundation of the committee. We had our first meeting. Actually, we had our first 2 meetings and they went really well. Right now it's around better connecting general ed and special ed, but I feel like it's important to include that in the special ed budget presentation because it's so imperative that those 2 connect in order to meet the needs of our students. Questions so far?
And how do you think we do with that, the connecting the, I mean, in general, prior to your meetings with Amy, we do a good job?
So I think that it's different in different environments and different places. I think that the goal, the want and the desire that our staff have that want and the desire to support all our students. We don't necessarily always know how to do that in the general education setting because it can look very different. And it's looking at our students and seeing where can they be included and how can we include them? And what resources do we need to pull in to better include them? So I think did that explain it?
Yeah, I think it's stronger in some areas than others. Sometimes, it's easier to have an inclusive practice in kindergarten because it's, different kind of animal than like a different class. But and so it's stronger in some areas. There's definitely desire, teachers want to do what's best for kids and they want their, that culture of they're all our kids, it's foster kids and we want to support them. So that's there. And I was very impressed with the committee meeting. The teachers really took the ideas and they're running with it. And I think we're going to see some great things out of there. I think it's a nice time for this in our district to focus on this priority. And I think the teachers are eager to support this initiative. So yeah, I think. Yeah.
I think if you go to the next slide, I can touch upon it. Just
in regards to inclusive practices, it's not always about a student being fully included every minute of the day in a general education setting. It's, is that student feel like they belong to a community? And what is that community? Is it the Gloucester community? Is it the school community? Or both? It's both, really. It's a classroom community. So there's all your different communities, and we want to make sure that they feel like they belong everywhere. Even if it's not all day, even if it's for periods of time. We want to make sure that when they're in there, it's in general education classroom, it's meaningful and that their needs are being met and they both feel like they belong. So it's easier. It's hard to explain, but I feel like we're on the right path to being there. I think that we really are. So some of the work that we have been doing and are doing, the evaluation and eligibility processes. This, we've had special education teacher training with a consultant this year for our K-5 special education teachers. They've all had 2 sessions with a consultant to learn how to kind of more of the understanding of specific assessments for looking at a reading disability and what that entails. So Matt had, I think at Veterans, they've started doing assessments, whereas previously it was a school psychologist doing all the academic and the cognitive. So this gives the special educators that ability to really know what are the tests, how do I administer it, how do I score it, and then how do I interpret it, and what does it mean? So we've started on that. District-wide team working to build a consistency in our process of procedures for the referral evaluations and eligibility. We had our first committee meeting today, which is a continuation from the plan for ongoing improvement committee work we did last year. And we identified kind of some key areas that we really want to dig deeper into the data and look at what are the trends, what are the high incident disability categories that we have, where might we need more professional development. Are we seeing that there's a huge influx of evaluations and referrals at grade 3? Why is that when we really start to see that there's the learning disability? So digging deeper into that data to help guide next steps. And then that ongoing review of data trends, really looking at that to target the future professional development. Some specialized curriculum training and consult that's occurred this year already and will continue with. The ACE curriculum, which is the Autism Curriculum Encyclopedia. We've had training and implementation. We had planned on doing implementation for K-2 and 9-12. Recently, 3-5 at West Parish they have expressed interest in wanting to get more training and start using that as well. So that was great to hear, you know, that we're building that. We've had AAC training and consult. So it's augmentative and alternative communication. For a lot of our students in our high needs programs, they have limited verbal communication and may need a device to help build their language. So we have a consultant that's coming in and providing consults for our programs and doing some training for our teachers. And that has hit the ground running as well. Jessica Minahan came in and did some training on intervention selection and practice, creating effective behavior intervention plans. That was clinical staff from Beeman, O'Malley, and the high school, targeted to really help support their social, emotional, more behavioral population and learning strategies for that. We have will expand. So each of these things we're expanding upon and growing, as you'll see in the next couple of slides. Specialized curriculum training for language. We have had training and implementation of rollout for grades 6 through 8 in our learning centers. And we are beginning rollout for small group reading at the high school. So it's our 900 level courses, which are all special education students that are reading significantly below grade level. It's a very systematic approach to teaching reading that has phonemic awareness, phonics. It's a little bit old school when you look at it, so it's not all, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it's research based
evidence-based, and it supports for students that are significantly below grade level. So that's something that we rolled out there. And then specialized reading curriculum for the life skills and transition program, we purchased and are using some Edmark reading, which is more for students with intellectual impairments to really help build their knowledge of literacy within their environment and build their reading skills. And then the additional consultation from the reading specialist for IEP teams for K through 12. Those are all things that are happening now. The next slide. Strengthening IEP development. We have had we are building our special ed parent advisory council, and I know we said we were building that last year. We started, tried, it fizzled a little bit, so we're rebuilding this group. We had a meeting last week. We had 4 parents. Andrea and Rachel from the preschool are supporting me with getting parents to be involved in this. Our 3 parents that were there are getting a Facebook page up and running to gather parents to know that we have a feedback and really gather like information from the parents in regards to what do you as a parent with a student with a disability feel like would be beneficial for training for the parent from the parent's perspective. And then how can we map that out for parents to really support them with understanding special education, understanding the process, understanding what type of disability their child's been identified with and how to best support them. So we're gathering that information now. We have a virtual meeting scheduled for February, and I have school committee members, if any of you want to come as well. I can add you to the link.
So I was gonna say, years ago, probably around 12 years ago, it was the same issue, because I used to go to the meetings as a liaison by the school committee, and it was the same struggle back then as well. So I hope.
I heard it's
no
an
one's
ongoing
taking it
struggle.
personally.
I
This is
know,
something
no,
that's
I heard
been
it was not the
hereditary in the city of Gloucester for
One
a
of-
very long time.
One of the things that the parents voiced in our last meeting was that timing, like around 7 o'clock would be a better time frame,
Right.
and virtual would probably get more parents right now because it's really hard to.
Yeah, they usually have to go to
So-
Patrick, I think, for a meeting.
So we're gonna start with getting feedback around what's the best time frame. If we could do some virtual trainings, would you be interested, and what those might look like? And then, you know, if we buy food, then maybe we'll get more people to. These are just a couple pictures on the left here, just to show the Gloucester. This is the Gloucester Integrated Preschool, and one of our students in the high school program, one of his goals for his IEP was that he would read a book to the preschool students. So he read Stone Soup, which went along with the theme for the preschool because they were making stone soup the next day. So that was one of his goals, and he was able to do that. And so just to kind of show that. And then on the left, another thing that the high school transition program has done that's really helped them to be more part of the school is they have a Fisherman's Cafe that they started. Not sure if you've heard of it, but if you're ever interested in coming on Wednesday for lunch, they do a fabulous job. There's menus that she puts out on what their lunch is for the week, and there's a certain amount that she charges, and then that money goes into purchasing more food, and so it's self-sufficient. We started it out with a stipend, and now it's really self-sufficient. So, and I put those pictures on because it really goes along with the inclusive practices on how do they feel included and where do they belong. The review of back to the IEP development, review of tiered focus monitoring findings and develop a district action plan. So we did have the Department of Ed came out, they did their on-site visit. Last year was a self-assessment. They reached out with some preliminary findings that they reviewed with us. She's putting those into writing, and then our next steps for that is to review those out with the leadership team, school committee team, and come up with an action plan to address anything that came up in regards to special education and compliance. There is a new Department of Ed is putting out a new IEP template.
They were planning on having that roll out next year for all districts. I just had a meeting with Russell Johnson last week, and he talked about how, yes, it is coming. Knows it keeps getting pushed back, but it is coming. So their plan is to have a solid draft to districts by March. Once they have that draft to us, we will start reviewing it with special education teams and talking about, as coordinators, how can we best support teams with moving forward in this direction. The good news from the Department of Ed is that it's not necessarily going to be mandatory to roll it out next year. We have more time, which is good because we need more time, knowing that there are so many things that go along with having a new IEP template and ways to collect data and the ways we need to write it, and then the training that needs to happen, the resources we need to build, and even just our software. How is our software of eSped right now going to adjust? So we have a little more time. We're gonna, once we get that draft, we'll start looking at it and brainstorming where do we see that there might be difficulty and how do we best support with that. The new IEP format really has very strong component of student voice and getting student voice involved in the process. And it's very much data based. So all the work we're doing now with really understanding data and digging deeper into the data, it's all going to help guide us with this new IEP. It also talks really about identifying student strengths at the IEP meetings. And that's something as coordinators that we've all really talked about, is making sure that when we are at the table talking about students' needs, that we're also talking about what their strengths are. And that it's not all about what they can't do. We need to talk about what can they do, what do they bring to the table, and then where are the weaknesses and how do we best support that way. Inclusive practices is ongoing review of and analysis of the district-wide placement data, whether students are placed full, partial, sub-separate, non-district. I'll have that data for you at a later special ed meeting in February. We had it last year. I'll have that kind of the difference in that this year. And then we have our cross-school inclusive practice leadership team to develop, which we talked about. And then from that, we're looking to develop and begin a multi-year professional development plan to support inclusive practices. Another little visual I like that I put here is why it's so important for us to all work together. I know it's a little bit small, but staff, administration, parents, and students, and how we're all pieces of that puzzle. And ultimately, students are the ones that are impacted the most, but how important it is for us to work together and ensure equal access for all students. Any questions?
I have a question, but I'm gonna wait till the end, but it's not pertaining to anything in particular.
So this is, and I went down instead of cross, sorry, I changed the numbers. This is the work we will continue to do around the referral processes, evaluations, and IEP development. So continuing to provide the training to special education teachers. We provided kind of a year one to K-5 elementary teachers this year. Next year, we'll provide that same training to middle school and high school teachers so that they have it. And then our elementary teachers will be able to dig deeper into having more of like consult based with their program leader around what are the next steps? How do we dive deeper into really explaining this to parents? It's all kind of outlined in the plan for ongoing improvement. Go down, specialized instruction and progress monitoring. Providing staff with necessary curriculum materials and resources to support individualizing and intensifying the instruction. And ongoing focus areas are autism, communication, reading, and emotional. Those are all disability areas that we seem to have very high needs in. Continuum of services. Continuing to build our capacity to provide a range of services that meet the needs of all disability categories. And ensure we have clear entrance and exit criteria for high needs programs, providing training and resources to staff around the high incidence disability categories, meaning the disability categories that we see as more prominent within our own district. And I've talked a lot about inclusive practices, so just continuing on that. Yep. The last slide is a different color, and even though I like purple, I don't love this slide. So
So I'll take this. So
yeah, I can speak to it if you'd like to.
that's right, I'll go with it. So, yeah, and for this, for the three of you, this isn't as I knew, because it being a week ago, we sort of raised this, okay, but we'll keep bringing up that specifically there's education, there's disruptions that are impacting the budget planning. And those have impacts on FY 2023, which then also impacts FY 2024. So just sort of run through them quickly for you. Is, we're definitely seeing more students with substantial needs than expected moving into the district this year. Okay, and that of course has an impact on the budget this year. Part of your contingency is going to be allocated towards that. But the more that happens, the potential impact on prepay for next year. Of course, if we impact prepay or not able to do prepaid priority tuition on levels we had recently, that then impacts operating budget for next year, as we know. And then moving down to number 2 here, just a higher level of need of students placed in out-of-district programs. So we're seeing this increased need. There might be new students, there might be existing students, and that's partly related to disruption, from sort of social, emotional, and also learning related from the pandemic. And then also another impact on that's impacting at costs are expected tuition increase for private out-of-school placements. So those are sort of related to the need and placement in out-of-district programs. Another disruption that makes just budgeting, but also staffing, of course, staffing budgeting related, is the ongoing challenge of special education staffing. Been very difficult this year, especially for specific roles that could be paraprofessionals, that could be speech and language, especially speech and language impacts for our staff, whether that's our own staff or more importantly, more significantly, those folks we contract with to provide those services. They have trouble getting staff as well. So that's impacted what our approach might be. And that also means that there may be a premium for special education staff we can find. And then another piece of that is with growing levels of need because of pandemic disruption, needing some higher staff with more specific skills. That could have been BCBAs, or that could be RBT trained staff as well. So those can come into premium as well. We have higher trained, more highly trained staff. And the last one here is just the, as we described last week, is the very large increase in out-of-district transportation costs. For this year's operating budget, which may affect next year's operating budget, and also expect those costs to continue to go up. So those are all things that, because they're significant dollars, because they're affecting this year and will affect next year as well, just make the budget planning right now complicated because it's hard to see, hard to anticipate well what we're going to see, because it's actually changing month to month, year to year. So I just want you as the committee, I'll share this with the broader committee as well. There's some of the impacts that affect us across the district. If you're affecting elementary school or IT, that affects the whole district. If you're impacting the budget disruptions to special education, that affects the whole district. So it all is connected, obviously, it's one budget. Just want to make sure folks are aware of that. That's some challenges that are in addition to the good work that's happening across the board, especially that Kate detailed. That's what we have. Questions?
I have a question, Katie. Oh, do you have any questions?
Yeah, but I'm not. Go ahead and ask yours.
This one briefly, I asked this every couple of years. What would you say the ratio is when there's a request from a parent for an IEP evaluation? What percentage of those requests are there where parents are hiring educational advocates to speak on behalf? That's usually a
We
good
do
gauge of-
not, there's been more this year than last year.
Okay.
We don't typically in Gloucester have, from what I've seen, high level of educational
Which
advocates.
is a good sign. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's not.
No, and just, I mean, one thing that, from the tiered focus monitoring from early preliminary findings, that,
she did tell us about that we haven't gotten anything yet, but that we did have, I think, 36 parents that completed the survey that they send out. And they were generally very positive that the parents felt as though they were supported and that their students were supported. That's, yeah.
Katie, how many surveys went out? Do you know? Is it 36?
About 700,
But 700, we got 36.
but that is not atypical for the amount of surveys that they get back.
My question is kind of an odd question, but I went through it ties into being inclusive. I went to a English language learners family event at the high school last month, I think it was maybe. I consider myself someone that knows a lot of people in Gloucester. I've coached, I've ran Little League, got 400 kids right there, you know, the whole nine. I think I knew 3 people in the whole room. And I was like, wow, I don't know anybody here. A cafeteria full of people, didn't know any of them. And that was really shocking to me, but ties into the question of kids that English language learners or struggle with English and also have a learning disability. Is that I'm imagining that's a tremendous, you know, challenge. Is that safe to say?
Yes, and it's a challenge to identify which
Right.
came first. Is it because if English is not the first language? And this comes up a lot with when we have referrals for evaluations and the student is an EL student, but there's also concerns because over time they've been getting RTI, they haven't made progress. So what language do we even test them in?
Right.
And are those assessments valid? So we have to test them in their primary language. We are, I think, finding that some of our students at like in the kindergarten level who are Ls, identified as Ls, don't necessarily, we're not sure what their primary home language is a certain language, but in school the teachers are saying, or the EL teacher is saying, can't quite figure out if their first language is fluent. So it's giving them that time to really develop too. Kindergarten is a little young to test them when we have them in 3rd, 4th grade, if they've not been making progress in EL or in general education that we really need to look at. Is there an underlying learning disability?
Yeah.
And that's hard to tease out. That's why we need to really look carefully at what assessments are we using and how do we understand and interpret those assessments to provide them.
Just to add another
But there
wrinkle.
are,
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead,
Just to
no.
add another wrinkle is that some of these students come from interrupted learning. So
Right.
in their home country, so
Yeah.
they're a 4th grader who may not have finished 2nd grade. So that's the other part. So, you know, as a school with a large EL population, we're getting better and better at parsing that out. Giving them time to just adjust to the school
Right.
and that and trying to find it, but it's tricky. Like,
I can't imagine. My other question was about the template, the IEP template. Is that the software that goes along? Is everybody in the Commonwealth using the same software for IEPs?
No, everyone uses different software. So we in Gloucester use what's called eSped or Frontline, goes with Frontline. Some districts use Aspen, some use Easy IEP, so it's different. So that did come up, you know, Russell talked about how we're gonna need to look at how does it, like they're going to need to adapt to the new format. So we'll see. He says it is coming. We're gonna get notification. We have a meeting this Friday with special ed directors and Russell Johnson. He's got an update for us around the IEP rollout. So I think that the changes that they're making are really just trying to make it more understandable for parents, like really more data driven. And having it not be, that's my hope too. Student voice, vision, data driven, less narratives, more data, and looking at progress over time. That's how I see it coming. So
I think it sounds so simple.
Hmm.
It is when you know it. It is when you know it. It's not when you don't know it.
My last question is probably more, and listening to Ben kind of walk us through that final slide, I thought, boy, there are some challenges ahead here for in the
There
special
are.
ed field. And the one question I had was on point number one, I think it was. Was it, how do we know there's more? I mean, educate me on how we know. I think it said there's more kids coming into the district with.
So Chris Castle does all the registrations that come in. When it's a student that is already identified and on an IEP, and she brings it to me, and if the placement is different than a full inclusion placement, we can't necessarily. So when it's an out of district placement already, we look at that student, we don't bring them back, we keep, their placement needs to stay where it is, so we've had,
So the family lives in Danvers, they have a out of district placement to a school, let's say in Fort Milton, okay? And that when the family moves from Danvers to here, that child still is in the out of district placement in Milton, okay? But we're now responsible for that. And then there's some specifics around that timing, but that's the sort of thing that I was referring to in that number one was families who move here and already had their two things really, or have a child in an adjunct placement, or bring a child who has very significant needs. And both those things have happened this year in larger numbers than we anticipated or budgeted for with our contingency. So it doesn't mean like it's 15, but literally, 4 more than we expected is a whole lot. Those are just the services that those students are expected to get are just they're expensive, right? They're very complex needs.
Well, I'll be happy. I'm sure the school committee will discuss it amongst ourselves, but I'd be happy to be the liaison for the special ed for the CPAC. I think it's. I've been involved in special ed through my own children and really saw the value. It kind of gave me a window into how it works and how to help, get my child to where they need to be. Happy to help. I don't know how much help.
It's spreading the word and getting parents to.
Gotta go live on Facebook.
That's what they're doing. They have a Facebook page.
Do it live though, while you're having the meeting.
I never.
People can tap into it and watch it. As long as it's no personal information.
Or we won't be going live on Facebook yet. Yes, Kathy.
Ben and I have talked about this briefly, but some of the challenges on that slide, I see roles for statewide advocacy. So, and you might be hearing things, and I know in the past we've made resolutions and we've talked about things, and that way we can talk to our local representatives at the state level about what is impacting Gloucester most or significantly. We know some things take years or decades, but sometimes it's just good for the awareness of what the challenges are. When you talk about out of district, sometimes must be having a double-digit % increase. That's big relative to our almost 3% increase in our budget. So we would want to be able to speak informed about that and also make an effort at the state level if we could.
I think one of the things that's really impacting is that our collaboratives, like SEAM Collaborative, North Shore Consortium, that we typically work really closely with to send students because they are more affordable, they're closer, so transportation isn't as far. They are overwhelmed with referrals and they're short-staffed, so they don't have the capacity to support our needs where they have in the past. So then we need to look at private schools that are further away. The private schools are more expensive, and now we're seeing that tuition is going to go up for the private schools. Transportation is more expensive because they can't find drivers. And then we're talking about transporting students to even further away. So it's the yeah, it is. And the collaboratives, the consortium, they're talking about how do they maintain staffing? How do they support what they have, and how do they also support the districts? And just meetings with the consortium
they're struggling because they want to meet the needs of all their member districts, and they're really struggling with being able to do that because of the capacity. The numbers for students that are needing more therapeutic placements, more therapeutic needs, it's statewide, probably countrywide, but statewide Massachusetts. When I talk to the out of district placements, they've never seen such an influx before of students that are needing something more significant than what we can offer. them in the public schools.
I saw the same exact thing was happening in Stillman, that there was no children that needed outplacement. There wasn't any place for them to go because of the consortiums being short-staffed. And then just like he said, if you go to the next level, private school, that number is much higher and they are much further away.
And those private schools with students that aren't necessarily making it there, you need to get shifted to something even further away and more restrictive. That is also occurring, that, you know, staffing is an issue for everyone. The needs they're seeing are increasing.
Wow. Soup from a stone, fancy that, huh?
Stone soup, it's a book.
That's a very nice reference. It's the only thing I remember.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Very well. Is this your turn? No. That's gonna be wrong.
So that's it for tonight. We're back here tomorrow, different players, so some of us will still be here, we'll be here again, and that's for review. Any questions before I wrap up?
Thankful. that
Thank you all.
Tonight,
Everybody.
Thank you.
Great. One thing on, just to say while the folks are all here, you know, running our schools, running any schools is very difficult. Running our schools is challenging because we've got, you know, this is, and Gloucester, first and foremost, is very lucky because the group of leaders it has, many of them are in this room right now. And they talk about the work they're doing effortlessly. That work is not effortless. It's a tremendous amount of work, dedication, commitment, and these folks keep going in every single day, supporting a lot of people, a lot of families, a lot of kids. And so they represent themselves in the district very well. But they also don't hint at the level of energy, expertise, commitment that this can do they have. And we're all benefit every day. All community benefits every day because of the folks in this room and all the folks they work with and support. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's the trickle down to why this community is so awesome. It's coming together because our kids and now the staff that lead them. It's everywhere.
Right.
Action items, I don't think we have the action items, so is there a motion to adjourn? So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Excellent.